Good evening. Welcome to the study session of July 22nd. Donna, will you do a roll call, please?
Well, Councilmember Blush.
Here.
Councilmember Stearns.
Here.
Councilmember Gilmore.
Here.
Mayor Nisco.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Sherman.
Here.
Councilmember Sapp.
Here.
And Councilmember Gutierrez.
Here.
Perfect. Thank you, Donna.
Welcome.
Tonight, Assistant Public Works Director Aaron Nix has details about the city's ADA transition plan.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to attempt to share screen here. There we go. Okay. Again, Aaron Nix, Assistant Public Works Director, wanted to bring forward to you, you're often going to hear us talk about mandates, some of them funded, some of them unfunded, a lot are unfunded. I guess I would consider this an unfunded mandate. Part of, and this is it's not a trick, it's just the way that it is. The state is requiring all jurisdictions to work on developing an ADA plan, Americans with Disabilities Act transition plan. And the concept behind it, it's a requirement of ADA. As you probably know, the Americans with Disabilities Act 1990 prevents discrimination against people with disabilities in many areas, including transportation. Part of this process that we needed to do was a self-evaluation of our facilities. I want to make it clear that it extends a little bit further than just right-of-ways. And what this plan right here is specific to is our right-of-ways. It also is applicable to parks, other types of facilities, but that was not looked at in this evaluation.
This building, this web broadcast, our website, it runs pretty deep, across all boards. The dais up there, the door pull strength, bathroom handholds, that goes on and on. But what we're talking about tonight is sidewalks, driveways, ADA ramps, push buttons, the things that you see out in the right of way.
Which is the bigger animal of the two, and that's why we wanted to attack this. This plan will be used for future planning and money spending with regard to accessibility improvements throughout the city. So I talked to you about these unfunded mandates. This is how most jurisdictions deal with that. They basically say, look, we're not going to give you any more grant money until you at least prove to us that you've done something. We've already kind of passed the test with regard to, we were working on it after the first year. They had already asked us. We told them we are striving to get this adopted by early fall, and that's why we're here in front of you now. So, slide. So what do the ADA plans consist of? They're basically, they're utilized to identify obstacles based on ADA standards. As Jay mentioned, it's sidewalks, it's curb ramps, it's the height of the push buttons of folks as they're trying to cross, it's the slope of the concrete, it's a bunch of things. And that's what we need to evaluate. And then you're required to identify barrier removal methods, provide a public engagement opportunity, and I'll get into that a little bit. Identify a schedule for barrier removal, and then identify an ADA coordinator based on, I believe, ordinance.
Our municipal code. Yep, ordinance.
Our ADA coordinator is the human resources manager, so that would be Leandra. What it is not, it's not a non-motorized plan. There's measures of recommendations for safety and connectivity. It's not about bicycle infrastructure. That's not included in this plan. We hired Transpo. I think I had brought that forward to you all, I think previous council members, but it was approved to move forward with that. Transpo was our engineer that helped us with this. This is in essence what their idea of what an ADA transition plan consists of. It's a self-evaluation. I don't know if you recall, we had to bring this back to you guys because originally we thought we had about 13 miles of sidewalk, when in the reality we have about 38 miles of sidewalk. So the consultant actually hired and trained actually some local people that actually went out and collected the data for us. They being Transpo did the quality control. They did an analysis and prioritization of all of the obstacles. There was a public outreach component. They looked at our standards review and then kind of an implementation on how we're going to move forward with this. So, any questions yet with regard to that? Okay. You want anything to add? Good. Okay. In essence, this is what and you guys were provided a copy of the actual ADA transition plan. In essence, these are the components of that: the self-evaluation, obviously an introduction, stakeholder engagement, pedestrian barrier removal methods and schedule, recommendations and next steps, and then there's associated appendices that include cost estimates, those kinds of things. The number is staggering. I'm going to tell you that ahead of time, just because there is a lot with regard to things that we need to improve, and I'll get in that in just a second. The self-evaluation elements that were part of this is obviously looking at your policy, reviewing to make sure that your standards all meet ADA, those types of things. That was part of that. The barrier inventory, which was part of that field work that they did. In essence, pedestrian transportation facilities were what they looked at: sidewalks, curb ramps, pedestrian signal push buttons, crosswalks, sidewalk hazards. If there's a pole in the middle of the sidewalk or some sort of obstacle, that's identified as something that needs to be removed as part of this project. And then a prioritization. Facilities are prioritized based on accessibility and location.
Is this the entire city or just like downtown or certain areas?
The entire city.
The entire city.
All right of way within the city corporate limits, not the UGA, just within the current city limits is what we did. I talked to you a little bit about stakeholder engagement. We actually, and that's actually the webpage. That's the picture of the webpage that we had up. We actually called out for folks to provide guidance and a system of questions with regard to key destinations, those types of things. And obviously, people identified government buildings, medical facilities was a big issue. Those types of things, parks, schools, and obviously transportation facilities. We had 19 respondents. About 84% of them were city residents. So I think there was one or two out of Union that provided some comment as well. So just want to share that with you. As you go through this process and start developing this, you want to identify revenue sources with regard to how you can deal with these non-compliant or issues that don't meet ADA standards. What we typically look at are capital facilities program. So when I come to you guys with projects, the desire is that if we're in an area, we're going to improve it to make it better, and that some of these obstacles will be dealt with through our capital facilities project program. Sidewalk.
That would be like Safe Routes to School project. We did a lot of sidewalk replacement and addition and that sort of thing. So typically when we're in a capital project, Olympic Highway North will be another one. We go in and remove barriers and take care of obstructions, ramps, that sort of thing.
Correct. Traditionally in the budget, you guys will typically see a couple $100,000 or $100,000 that's dedicated towards sidewalks maintenance. And in essence, that was operations doing what they can to replace those things as they can, as time allows. And then the other process would be through permitted development. So if a developer comes in and wants to develop in an area, as they rebuild those areas, we ask and we require them to rebuild those obstacles and get rid of them. In essence.
An example of that was the courthouse remodel downtown, that they have off-site parking areas and some other things. That parking area needed ADA connectivity to their building. And so they were doing off-site ADA ramps at various corners to get their people into the building from off-site parking.
I want to give you guys kind of a feeling for how many obstacles we actually have in the city. This is more of a generic presentation. This was what ifs, and how about what I'm going to do is basically go through here and I'm just going to let you know the actual physical numbers of what we have. So Specific to curb ramps, we have approximately 733 curb ramps in the city. That equates to about 50%, 56% of the total amount of curb ramps have significant compliance issues. So over half, meaning it's more than just a slope problem. It's more of maybe something's heaved up and it's a significant obstacle. It's something that needs to be fixed. Minor compliance are maybe the slope is off just a little bit, couple percentage points. We have 345 of those, which equates to about 26% of the total amount that we have. And then we have 217 compliant ramps, and that equates to about 17%. So in total, we have about 1,295 ramps within the city, and more than half of them are not compliant. There are issues associated with that.
Some of that is when the ADA was adopted originally, they changed the standards over time. So you look at the yellow tactile strips, that's the yellow truncated domes that are in the ramp. Those weren't originally required in the 90s, but they are now. And so the ramps need to be updated, and then they changed some of the cross slopes and that sort of thing. So you can see what was built as an ADA ramp that met standards way back when, but it doesn't now. So the total number that meet the current standards is quite low.
Correct. Other things that we looked at, I did also talk to you about sidewalks. It's actually 37.4 total miles of sidewalks that we have. Significant compliant issue is not bad. 1.8 miles or about 5% of the total have significant compliance issues. A lot of those, I mean, just to be candid, is going to be addressed, and I'll talk about this other project, our downtown street tree project. That's going to help this significantly, and we're moving forward with that. Sidewalks, minor compliance issues are about 35%. Which is about 93%, 34.8 miles of minor compliance issues. Again, slope or something's not adequate.
This could be a grinding issue too. Our guys go around, we have the machine that we grind out. A lot of tree roots were lifted up. We can take it out until you get down to about 2 inches of concrete left. Then there's a problem where you have to go and pull the panel out, take the root out and replace it. Some trees don't keep heaving it over time, but most of them, like downtown, if they're starting to push the sidewalk up, it just gets worse and worse over time. So eventually we're out removing the panel, which is quite a bit more costly than just surface grinding.
Yeah. Another issue they looked at was bus stops. We have 23 in the city, and they wanted to evaluate those with regard to compliance. There are some compliance issues with that, but the council needs to be aware we don't own those facilities. That is the MTA. So that ultimately is their responsibility to help deal with, but ultimately we're the jurisdiction. So we'll be, I think, on top of that. Let me see what else I have here. Okay. We went over the part of this process. We have to develop a barrier removal schedule. This is basically just a planning level estimate of the time frame needed to address the highest level barriers that were identified within the study. The number of years to resolve all highest priority barriers. The table to the right there shows an example of additional funding levels required to resolve very high priority barriers in a shorter time frame. And the way that they at least identified that was that's your annual contribution to the inventory work that we did, how long it would take you to address those high priorities. That's just an example. We actually have ours, which is even significantly worse than this. And there are some issues that we can talk about.
So Aaron, was that the total cost? So that would be divided by the development projects, the slide that you gave. So you have development projects, our capital projects, and then our maintenance projects also.
Correct.
So you take that total and it's divvied up, you know, it's not like these are all city maintenance projects.
Correct.
This is not per year, it's per year.
Per year.
Yeah.
For
It is
20
per year.
years.
Yeah. So, and again, you guys, I'm just being open and candid with all this. The reality of ours, with everything added up, understand that the consultant was asked to kind of put estimates on what it would cost to do that. They did that in here. And ultimately, the grand total in 2025 dollars is about $46 million is what it will take us to get basically fully compliant with everything addressed.
So that's every tree limb, every lift sidewalk, every power pole, every ADA ramp, every driveway, everything repaired to current.
And for clarification, this is not adding a sidewalk where there is not one
That's correct.
currently,
That's
right?
correct.
So if we have just a right of way and a road, paved road, and there's just a gravel shoulder, this doesn't include,
That's correct.
including an accessible sidewalk on that right of way.
Very, very true. As far as our budget, you guys, just so that you kind of have a feel for what we have at least tried to spend on this on an annual basis. We identified it on page 51, but traditionally, I think REIT 1 and 2, we've dipped into that for these types of projects. Traditionally, about $20,000 a year. The street and stormwater maintenance projects, it was not much. It was like $3,000 a year. The big one was TBD, which was about $70,000. I told the consultant, and based on Jay and I had conversations with them, we have TBD up for vote now. We're gonna have to figure out what would happen if we don't get a TBD. What's that going to do? They identify that in here subjectively via language, but the reality is pretty significant. Based on that funding amount, it would take us 129 years to get the highest priority ones completed. Based on those funding levels, $100,000 a year.
That
So
works.
pretty significant.
What is the state requiring though? Are they requiring the plan and we work on it little by little, or are they requiring it to be done in 10 years or 20 years?
So we're very concerned about that. That's a legal issue,
Yeah.
candidly, and we had that conversation with them. In essence, what the state is asking is, are you doing something in order to try to eliminate these things? Now, I think the courts will decide if it's enough or it's not enough. I'm not sure, but I think that is, I want to give you kind of a similar, just so that you guys know, based on the 46 million that I talked about, based on if I were to break it up into 10, 20, and 30 years, in essence, for 30 years for us to get in compliance, that's about $435,000 annually that we would need to dedicate that. For 20 years, $690,000. 10 years, $1.5 million is what we would have to dedicate based on our inventory annually to get to that. We don't have the resources. That's not what we've proposed here. There's also something that Jay kind of alluded to at the beginning with regard to there are some items that were in compliance at the time. So there is a process in here where the city can actually initiate it. They call it the MEP process, the maximum extent practical. There may be some things that are just borderline compliant. We have to do everything we can to show that it was compliant, and then we can kind of necessarily favor it. We can kind of go past that. So we do have some opportunities to do that, but that's a requirement. Again, they're not going to come out and say automatically you have to finish this in 30 years, because the reality is they would every city on this. So I think a good approach is the approach that we've been taking, and that's continue to try to address them in any way that we can, continue to dedicate some funding to it. But again, that's a conversation that we need to have collectively, because if TBD doesn't pass, that's $750,000 or $650,000, basically a quarter of our street budget axed.
And some of our projects are going to address this, the Highway North from C
Yes.
Street to Walmart. That's going to address all of that entire stretch. And the
It's not
tree
compliant.
program is going to address Railroad and maybe some Coda Street as well. So we're kind of already in the process of fixing some of these issues.
They across the school addressed some, Railroad Avenue project, installed a bunch of walks where there was none existing, and repaired
Done
some.
a pedestrian project.
Yep.
So that should show the state that we're
Agreed.
we're
Agreed.
on the track.
Agreed.
I think one of the most important aspects here is that this continues to make the city grant eligible.
Yes.
For state transportation dollars, and without this plan. Not eligible, right? So we
Correct.
have this at least in our back pocket, so we're eligible to continue receiving those funds, so we can leverage our local dollars with state or federal dollars to knock off some of these projects.
One of you guys asked, what is the right number? That table or the table to the right, in essence, that's what we've been advised with regard to what is the right number. Again, not specified by law, depends on the jurisdiction's financial abilities. It's the spirit of the law showing a good faith effort to comply. I think that is kind of the gray area that we need to try to work on. And then the risk management component of it, because clearly when, people get hurt, those kinds of things, that's a risk management thing that we have.
Does our insurance company help with some of the issues out on the?
Just a little bit, there is a mitigation grant through our risk pool. I think it's a maximum of $30,000. It's a competitive grant. The Rockdale Road pedestrian path was repaved and reconstructed that a couple of years ago. So it's a competitive program. It's not substantial, fortunately.
And we applied for it last year for the downtown street tree project and didn't get awarded funds.
I mean, we're not the only city dealing with
A lot of
sidewalk
cities,
problems.
yeah.
Mark and I walked 3 blocks from the Capitol, and there were some pretty big sidewalks. I mean,
That's Olympia, right?
Yeah, that's Olympia, 3 blocks from the Capitol. I mean, I almost tripped, I think, matter of fact.
So the recommendations that the consultant gave with regard to the use of this, it's intended to inform the implementation of this transition plan and the ongoing removal of accessibility barriers, not presented in priority order, and represent both near-term and longer-term work plan tasks that's identified in the document. You'll be able to see some of the ways that we could identify all of these as pending, underway, ongoing, or complete. We were able to affirm today that the state is not going to ask us to do annual reporting on this. What did they say? Basically, it's just this, you just have to basically show that you've done the plan.
And submit the plan for their approval.
Right.
And then the layers for the transition plan are going into our GIS software. And we're able to track the projects pending or completed in GIS, which would be a very helpful tool. That the transition plan is a snapshot in time, the one that we're getting from the consultant. Our GIS system is actually the living document that we'll be able to keep things inventoried in there.
And part of that expense that we paid was for them to physically go out there and physically take GPS measurements. So we have all that in digital format now, so we can maintain it ourselves. As these things are eliminated, we basically take it off the map.
The state's not requiring it now, but they change their mind all the time. So a
Absolutely.
couple of years from now, they might require it then.
Potentially,
Right.
they could, but the reality is that you would bankrupt every single city in this state.
Right.
I mean, I'm serious. I mean, this is not, it's just not like the Bellevue of Washington or, that kind of thing. So, I mean, that's why I think they put that caveat in there, kind of the gray areas.
That's why the TBD is so important. And then along with the TBD passes, and hopefully we get the growth that we're expecting, get the homes, and then we get maybe a large box store to come in, and then our TBD actually goes up. And so it's all about growth. We really need to grow. So
Questions, you guys? I will tell you the next step for this is we wanted to bring this to you in a study session. I let Mark make suggestions. We're happy to, I guess, come back again if we want to on another study session to discuss. But ultimately, what we want to do is get this in front of you for adoption. So,
That's a requirement, right?
Correct.
Local adoption.
yes, I verified that as well.
Action.
Huh?
The resolution.
Yes,
Turn.
yes.
It's light reading
But it
too.
is.
I don't know if you've seen the whole plan yet or not, but it goes pretty quick. It's not bad. I'd flip through
There's
it.
a lot of good data. in it.
Yeah.
A lot of it's appendices.
If you want to fall asleep, some of it. So.
Any other?
Couple of things.
Yes, sir.
First of all, what we've done downtown on Railroad has been excellent, especially with the bumps and the coloration and the access that's going on downtown. So, like again, I want to repeat what the mayor said. That should show well in what we're doing here and as we continue to the future. So is our expectation that level everywhere, every street, or that's why you're giving us this huge projection bill that we're like talking about? Is that the price of everything at that level?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And it's not sugar coated. That's the reality based on the inventory. That's what we have. And candidly, I don't think, well, any court's going to find you wrong if you've done everything you can to help fund that. And I think you guys have done your very best to try to do that. The reality is that we're in fiscal straits right now. And hopefully TBD does pass and we can continue to dedicate more funds to that, but we'll see. Are there any other questions on that particular piece? Again, we want to bring it forward to you guys, have some discussions. I don't think we typically do public hearings on this. Okay.
Just one last thing. I think it's very important that even though it's a burden, the amount of people, it is ADA Accessibility Month here in Shelton. We had a presentation by the People First group. We have the exceptional foresters. We have a lot of seniors that live here too, a lot of boomers. Our county in particular has a large senior population. Juxtaposed against all the other counties. So something like this is important, even though it's expensive, and we should be aggressively doing as much as we can toward meeting all those standards. And that's just my two cents.
No, I appreciate that.
Councilman Peters, completely understood and agree. This is an element for economic development and tourism, right? You have safe, traversable sidewalks and pedestrian corridors. It's going to make people get out of their cars, visit our local businesses, walk around downtown, make it more inviting. So absolutely, there's an element there that we need to look at beyond just the cost, that this is a truly a quality of life measure for all of our residents and visitors that come to Shelton.
I will tell you that we are going to attempt, at least from the facilities and parks perspective, to try to identify, Jay has suggested, and we're going to move forward with that, on kind of an annual inspection by all of us, talking about us as staff, to go through our facilities and try to identify ones within those facilities and try to just address those as improvements happen, as needed. Hopefully a lot of them in-house if they do exist. But that's our intent, to try to address those other areas that we need to be conscious of. Right. Okay.
Thank you, Aaron.
Of course.
We have another presentation from you for Public Works Capital Projects Update.
Thank you, sir. So we have been, although the projects all have not hit the street, I'm trying to express to people, we have 4 or 5 projects that will be out to bid by the end of this year, significant ones. We have completed some too, so I just want to make you guys aware of, as I kind of have transitioned to kind of help parks and facilities, they are now a part of Public Works. So you're going to see all of those, not all of them, a lot of those projects in here as well, because they fall under our umbrella with regard to Public Works. So just wanted to share a couple of successes that we've had of late. Luke has worked really hard on the HVAC systems in the dog shelter, the museum, and the library. And many of them have multiple units. It's not just one air conditioner. It's like 4, 5 internal, external. He's been able to get all the stuff that we wanted to complete in those facilities almost done. We're waiting for a coil on one project, but other than that project will be complete just in time for the dog facility, just because it was getting hot in there, and fans were just not doing it. So that's some success story. Also, one of the things that we recently just completed is, if you recall, we got about, I think it was 150,000 towards the development and design of in essence, a backup water treatment component to our wastewater treatment plant. We currently utilize UV disinfection. Basically, it's UV light. It shines on that. There could be times, and this is more of an advanced planning design that we did here. There could be a potential, and we ran into this last winter, where components of the UV system fail. Then what do you do? Because now you've not disinfected the water. it's sitting there and you got to discharge, especially, was it true 8 million gallons a day potentially? Is that what we treat there?
That would be the highest, but when the particular event happened, it was a lower amount.
It was.
We had a pipe that backed up and it flooded an area and caused all sorts of issues, so.
What this design is going to allow us to do, we have a slack tide tank. In essence, what that does is that allows us to store much volume of water in case something happens like this. What the design of this was we wanted to develop an alternative system that if that UV system failed and we had to discharge, we would have another way to disinfect that. So newer technology, it's using what they call peracetic acid. It's a very light dosing. The residency time, meaning the contact time, is not as bad as other methods. It's fairly safe. Peracetic acid is a rather light acid, but it addresses that issue. That design is complete. Parametrics did that. We currently are in discussions with DOE, Department of Ecology, for them to accept that. And once that happens, then we can close out the project. Now we just need to find funding to get that constructed. So, but this opens up. This was one of those projects, you guys, that the oyster farmers, DOH, all of them are very interested in this just because they have a lot of resources out there. So they have been very much in favor of helping us get these types of monies. Also, if we were to implement this, I think it would change some of the closures out there with regard to shellfish. So it is another, just a backup piece to make sure that the water we're sending out in the bay is as clean as we can get it. So the other project just happened here last week. You guys, I'm sure, saw all the riffraff with regard to road closures up in Mountain View was the paving work. And I actually have some pictures later on that I want to show you. I will tell you that Todd did an amazing job.
This is Todd Rhodes.
Todd Rhodes, our street superintendent. In essence, there is a lot more prep work that people aren't aware of. They just see the paver going by and look up, there they're paving. No, there was a lot of other work. He had to do a lot of shoulder work, getting those up to grade. There's also a thing that you do prior to overlay. It's called pre-leveling. And the idea is that a lot of times roads will lose their crown and they won't drain effectively. You basically have to pre-level so that you get that crown back again. And they do that through the paving process so that it will drain appropriately. He did a lot of that work too. So kudos to him.
He raked a lot of asphalt on a 90-something degree day. Those 2 days that they paved up there was hotter than all get out. So if you would have had a body cam on Todd, like the police officers have, we all would be sweating if we were watching. What is Todd doing right now?
Can I ask one quick question?
Please.
Go back to the sewer plant. Have we done a smoke test yet? We've been talking about for a couple of years that will reduce that 8 million gallons a day.
Oh, you're talking about I&I.
Yeah.
That's what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Yes, we are actively working on I&I.
Basin 6 is next. It's on my CIP funding. I don't know if it's 2026 or 2027. I gotta go. I'm doing budget right now, so I have it slated for either this next year or the year after for design.
Because we know that 8 million gallons is only 4 million in the summer, so it's all
Groundwater.
groundwater.
Yeah,
That-
or
getting into our-
downspouts
or
discharged
sewer.
into our sewer system, things like that. Yeah, we know there's I&I throughout our community.
And that's been a lot of our problems is on the very heavy rain days over the years I've been here is that's where we've had all of our problems. It's on an extremely heavy rain day and the slack tank gets full and or something quits working and then boom. That's why
Power outage.
that's why we put the UV lights, redundancy on those, and we took about a generator over the years for that.
Well, and added the slack tank, we didn't have that a number of years ago, so that storage capacity, well, again, the reason why it's called slack tank, tight slack, if you want to discharge it with water moving, so it dissipates that, so.
Because of all those efforts, we get award year after year since I've been here, several awards for the treatment plant and it actually has opened up shellfishing, I believe,
Yes,
in the area.
that's
So
correct. That's correct. Jay, this is really, you're the expert on this. I want you to help me with this one.
Ports away.
Angleside pressure zone. we talked to you guys about this. In essence, this is that dead storage issue that we've been talking about up in Angleside. What?
Yeah, so the Angleside Reservoir, we can use about half of the 500,000 gallons in the reservoir. Once you get it, it's half full, you have houses right around it that are below 20 psi in water pressure. So we have to stop. We can't use any more water out of the tank. As you get development up in that area, every new house starts, there's a requirement in our water comprehensive plan for X number of gallons of storage to be held in the reservoir. So as you get bigger and bigger, your reservoirs need to get bigger and bigger for fire storage, right? So the problem we had is we're a little upside down in Angleside on the numbers right now. And so this booster pump station that's up there, what it does is allows the reservoir, when it gets to a certain height, the booster pump station turns on, continues to draw water out of the reservoir and maintains pressure in that whole zone until the fire event's over with. And then it allows the lower station to fill the reservoir back up again. And then this station goes offline. So all it does is just maintains the pressure at pretty much full tank that's there right now. It's a really complicated project. There's a lower pump station with 2 pumps. There's this upper pump station with 2 pumps. And then there's a reservoir, and then they all need to talk. And so the telemetry is a little complicated. They're called set points. What turns on when, what turns off when. It's a really interesting project. And so more to come on that we're near design completion. The consultant has a meeting with us tomorrow to go over the final design. We're going to be working on final specifications and bid package. Probably going to bid in 6 weeks, 8 weeks, something like that, soon. So this fall is going to bid. We're going to be coming back to you for hopefully recommendation of bid award. And that hopefully we're within budget for this project. It's a pretty technical project with pumps and telemetry and wiring and controls and some demolition. That's part of the demolition you can see there. We're replacing some pumps. So this will also jump into the next project that in the future in Angleside, you can see the existing Angleside Reservoir and Pressure Sustaining Station. There's an arrow right there at the top. That's where the reservoir and station are right now. The hill keeps going up and up and up. And so we're looking at a potential reservoir site, and it will be called the Upper Angleside Reservoir to gravity feed that whole area that's within the city UGA with fire suppression and drinking water. And so the good thing about having a reservoir is you pump the water into it. And if the reservoir is sized adequately for growth and all that, you use water. If you have issues with pumping water, you have a day or two to get it fixed, whatever, get it back online and get it pumped back in there. We're living on the edge a little bit because we have a half of a reservoir we can use, and that water's going up and down like no tomorrow. We're using it very quickly. So this upper station will provide great benefit to this region in the future. But we have a second reservoir we want to put in first. That's in the Mountain View zone. Is there a slide in there on that?
No.
Okay.
We just got word today. I don't even know if you've seen it yet.
That we got the grant funds
Yeah, we
to
got-
design that reservoir.
Yes, $550,000 from the legislature to design that. Again, it's not for this area. This is for Mountain View. The idea being that's going to be about a 1.5, maybe 2 million gallon tank. It's going to be huge.
So we've for sure finally figured out the Angleside pressure zone problem, because this has been like, even when I was sitting out in the audience, I mean, we're talking 12, 13 years, we've been talking about that Angleside booster station that is not worked. So we have, it's figured out.
We've got a design.
It is.
Our
It's gotta
design
work.
team has figured it out. And in our first meeting with him, Mark was in the meeting, and they've done a lot of these and they know exactly what needs to be done. So they gave us the president of their company was sitting there, gave us a high level of confidence that they know what they're doing. They've done these before.
Is it because the technology is better now than it was when we put it in? Or is it, we just got,
I think there's several factors. I think one, we may have more information than what we had at the beginning. I think we tried to really patch a wound with a Band-Aid beforehand and not knowing the entirety of the complexities of that pressure zone. And so I think we know more now. We approached it a little differently.
Switching out components at the lower station to
Correct.
variable frequency drives, new pumps with variable frequency drives. That way they can operate at different pumping capacities to match pumping capacities up there. They didn't have that capability in the old design, and it made it really complicated, the old design.
glad we hung in there, because didn't we talk about maybe selling off the parts a few years back?
At one point, I think we talked about whether we could dispose of it.
Yeah.
And surplus, we have some infrastructure in place, right? If we had to build that building, it's X amount of dollars to build the building in place. So at least we have some of the infrastructure in place we can utilize right now and we save some money.
Well,
One of the
kudos
things- and
figuring it out, for sure.
I don't know, I'm assuming they modeled this, but we really tweaked our model in this effort. Meaning we found, what do we call those points?
The set points.
Set
Yep.
points, all of that was established, all of that was put into the model, and it's very sophisticated, and I'm pretty confident in the updated model that they've run. So,
So now just remember though, this isn't an extreme of fire event, right? We don't have many extreme fire events, hopefully in the city, right? So the goal is that thing never turns on, right? But when we're doing our calculations, we have to show that we have X number of gallons for each house or commercial building and that sort of thing. And that all needs to add up correctly. So if it did happen, we'll have the water up there. Plus we have some water for new growth also. That will allow Coffee Creek to connect in and not to have to do any improvements.
This is the fix for the 770 homes like that. This one right here.
Yeah, we'll gain about 1,000 residential units out of it, 700 to 1,000.
And Department of Health wants us, right? They're
Yeah.
requiring us to go through these pictures and just show that we have that capacity for fire flow. They may, worst case scenario, tell us that we can't permit anymore. Structures if we do not have that capacity. Now, if we're working towards, right, that solution, they'll work with us, and luckily enough, we have a state delegation that's been very supportive. Shelton received $1.8 million to make sure that we have this project into us. And the way we'll fix that, continue to hopefully see Coffee Creek get off the ground, as well as provide the capacity to the rest of that pressure zone.
So the state approved our water comprehensive plan, and by approving the plan, we have unlimited connections, i.e. we manage the system. They keep looking at us, right? But if that level of trust is broken, where we don't do a capital project and we get behind or something happens, they can limit our number of connections.
next project I want to talk to you guys about was the Crosstown Trail. Now, this is separated into two components. One was the rail removal project, and I want to talk to you about that. The reality, as we got in design and moving forward with this project, ultimately the cost estimate to do the work was about $450,000. Originally, I think it had been brought forward that we were going to attempt to try to pay for all of it utilizing the rails that we're trying to recycle. Well, lo and behold, as we start crunching the numbers, the reality is that we weren't even going to be close to having adequate resources. It was, again, $450,000. We were going to generate maybe $100,000 in getting rid of the rail. So it was decided we are not going to move forward with this because we just don't have the money to do that. I think there's been some discussion of potentially pushing that forward with maybe utilizing our crews, maybe in some more funding in the future. I don't know. But as it is for this particular, removing the rails is just not going to happen right now. The caveat to that, though, is we have a lot of money that we have that's been granted to us, basically design and prepare for, have some public interaction about the trail. In essence, the trail from Wallsneelan all the way to Highway 101, and then Wallsneelan to the marina. We have about, well, you see the numbers there, 190 $9,920, as well as $275,000. We've developed a scope with one of our on-call contractors, Keller Associates. Mark just recently signed a grant agreement for the $199,000. I have a little bit more work to do with regard to scoping on that. We're in essence going to combine both projects and get all of the design done on the entirety of all of it. So we'll be utilizing both grants to make that happen. I expect that kickoff within the next month or so. As we move forward, you will also see that work order will come in front of you too.
So the good news about getting final design on projects like this is we'll have cost estimates that are pretty reliable, and we'll be able to hopefully secure grant funding for one or both of them, maybe a piece of one of them, that sort of thing, in the future. This could be a couple of years from now, right? So both projects, both have merits, whichever way you go, right? I think the Simpson corridor, starting at the park, Neelam Park, and going all the way up to 101, probably, in my estimation, is a project that maybe more people would use right away. And it's probably a little cheaper because of having to cross Goldsboro Creek with the Highway 3 project and then go down through the urban corridor. And then you get over to the Pear Orchard, which is wetlands where you have to elevate something. And then you get out to the marina eventually. That project's probably a little more complicated and maybe a little harder to permit too.
Potentially, sure. So what we've heard is kind of the desired amenities, a 12-foot wide paved path, separated from traffic, lights, benches, garbage cans, public art, interpretive signage. Part of the rail removal project is we are going to keep a lot of the old historic railroad crossing signs as well as the flashing pieces, with the idea that maybe we could do some wayfinding, some sort of signage with them in the actual trail corridor itself. So that's part of the exciting planning period stuff that's coming up on this, as well as some protected railroad or protected crossings on our heavy traffic areas like railroad. I love this picture. That picture is actually the Cushman Trail. That's where I raised my kids. I use that trail often. I can't tell you how much of an economic development tool that thing is, because it takes you right through middle of Gig Harbor. It gets you to Gig Harbor North. And I'm telling you, people utilize this all the time as a safe way to walk. Kids, it's just a lovely, lovely trail. And I think it would be a really nice amenity for us here within the city. Obviously, the benefits, it connects the city's most heavily used areas, parks, park and ride facilities. It's part of the safe routes to schools. There's a component there. Tourism potential, like I said, it's been amazing what it's done for. Gig Harbor doesn't have a parks department. They're part of Metro Parks. So they've been involved in making that happen, but it's really, they've aligned some of their ball fields and other things with this so that you can walk or bike to where you need to go as opposed to getting in a vehicle. Obviously, this will build a spine for an improved pedestrian network, which I've heard is a big deal for us here. And I agree. I think it's an important thing. And then obviously there's a potential for trail-oriented development to go on with that. Any questions about those projects thus far?
So it was 100,000 for the material. That wouldn't even cover them removing it.
Correct. That's correct. Yes, sir.
The Parks Advisory Board was impatient in getting this project to move forward and to utilize this and leverage this to connect all the parks and to make walking and cycling part of life here in Shelton. So just from their point of view, we'd like to make this happen. And we'd also like to include the David Shelton Pear Orchard as maybe a destination point, somehow restoring their wetlands or doing a boardwalk there or something like that, or taking cuttings from the old Pear Orchard and starting another projects or graft these old pears and other sites around the city. So those are the ideas that were coming up with the Park Advisory Board. And this was going to fuel really the quality of life in Shelton as far as parks and for attracting tourism and for making Shelton a destination point. So that's what the Parks Advisory Board wanted me to relay when we talked about this. So I'm relaying it.
I do want to add just quickly.
Nice.
This is going to be expensive, you guys. There's no way we're going to get around this. I know initially there was a $2.2 million. I personally, having built some of these, it's probably going to cost more than that. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I think it's vital that we try to develop partnerships, and anybody that's out there doing something, try to make a connection with them to kind of get our hooks into other funding resources if we want this to happen. One of the things I don't know if the council is aware of, there's a significant restoration project going on in Oakland Bay that is in design right now. In essence, what they're going to do is they're going to create four bays or empty areas actually out in Puget Sound within the bay, with the idea that they're trying to increase the salt freshwater interface. What we've built is basically streams. We've straightened them, we've heated them, and we basically said, get the fish out of here as fast as you can. Well, that doesn't work in their life cycles. They need time to adjust from fresh to salt and the other way around. So there is significant amount of money. The tribe is involved in this. They're spending a lot of millions of dollars to do some restoration work. And I'm trying to connect this trail a little bit to that somehow, as far as maybe if there's wetland impacts, there can be some mitigation or something as part of their project. I'm trying to think out loud and get as many money resources as we can to help get what we need and want here. So I just want to make you aware of that. Okay, street tree. We are almost ready. I know we told you we wanted to do it after the first of the year. The reality is we got them. We had some issues with our front end specifications. Those have been resolved. Mark's ultimatum to us is get this out by September, if not earlier. And we intend to do that with the desire that we will start doing this before the holiday season. And in essence, the project we hope will be completed before Christmas is the desire. So that's the direction we're headed with this. Again, we do have plans and specs. I think we have enough resources based on the cost estimate.
It's close. Depending on the concrete pricing, we might have to supplement the project a little bit. So we'll see. We need to get it out on the street and actually receive the bids. We do have a downtown repair fund, $200,000 that was put in the budget this year, that if we have to, we can divert some money to the street tree project, which is really an important safety project.
And I think the council understands that this was based on an evaluation that was done, I think in 2023, where it was Jones and Jones actually presented to you guys kind of a streetscape. I know in the public meeting we held on this particular issue, there were a couple folks that were very specific about this and their desire to move towards this. Some, more green in essence.
And widen the sidewalks and that sort of thing. Right now, this is a safety project, right? And getting the trees out, because I can't keep the trees because they keep pushing up the walk, and put them back where they are. This Jones and Jones report, though, talks about in the future, this is down the road, that the sidewalks might get widened and the center turn lane might go away and get narrower, that sort of thing, and improve the sidewalk cafe ability and that sort of thing. Sure.
And more green.
And more green. Yep. Bulb outs at all the ramps, that sort of thing.
These are the project areas, just to let you know again. There is basically the schedules of at least, we believe that we will be able to cover all the schedules. So A, B, and C to completely do all of the project. We have the trees already. We just need to get going, get it done.
The trees surviving pretty okay.
They're okay. There one or two are stressed, but we have basically put them in mulch. No, not mulch, chips, as well as a watering system, as well as bags, because they are out in the middle of the sun. They're doing okay. thus far.
We bought them early though, just because we found the diameters that were available in not very big numbers. We're trying to get larger trees in here and there weren't a dime a dozen for what the arborist said to put in. We had a hard time finding them. So we decided once we found them, rather than waiting, we should procure those. So we might have a loss of a tree or two that we need to replace.
But yeah. Ultimately, these are the trees that we had talked about. That's the fire starter to the left, and then the young Princeton ginkgo on the right. Very good, calmer types of trees that, unlike the ones that we have out there, they are not going to shear off with ice and those kinds of things that make it really impossible. You can't maintain them. It's just the way that it is, the species. So
The pears get brittle with age.
uh,
But 20 years ago, that information wasn't out there, right? This was a very, very common street tree. Olympia, you go all over the place. This pear tree was very, very popular back in the day.
this project I've been talking to you guys about, we will be out to bid on this by middle August. In essence, what we're doing is this is the membrane treatment plant. We had a design going to the next picture because the next picture actually physically shows you where the new tank is going to go. Part of the process when I got this project is we had not thought about the permitting process. And we have an interesting, Jay loves this topic. We have an interesting issue out here in that, believe it or not, there's a pocket gopher that lives out here that is
Not just one. He said a pocket gopher. It's more than one pocket gopher, right, Aaron?
You're right. The issue with this pocket gopher is you can only find it in here, or Olympia. And it is based on natural processes. It evolved and now it's a sacred
Mazama pocket gopher.
diversity, maintain diversity. The reason why I bring that up is in essence what we had to develop as part of this process. I just want you to make you aware of this because this is the kind of environmental stuff that we're going to be dealing with. Goldsboro Creek, we'll talk about that, is going to be even harder because we got to deal with the Corps of Engineers. But the reality of what happened was that a biologist had identified when they constructed this areas of habitat all around here. There were 2 or 3 or 4 mounds that were actually physically here. In essence, there's guidance provided by Fish and Wildlife that if you impact a certain amount of acreage, you have to replace it with other acreage. In essence, that's what we did. We compensated for the impacts here, and we went in our own people. We did not hire a contractor to do that. We, in essence, created more habitat out here that is basically going to be hands off from us. We had to grade it, turn over the soil, and then plant it with a certain
Seed it,
seed
and we're
mixture that
watering
is
it.
purely their food type. And it's really doing well. I'm amazed. Our guys did an amazing
The goal
job out
is
there.
for them to migrate over to this sweet area, right?
Yeah.
And it's before we build it, so.
So we went through SEPA, we got determinations, we got all of that worked out. The regulatory agencies agreed. We've already done the restoration work. We're going to bid in August to get that constructed. And we have adequate money to make that happen. Now I say that, we still don't know about tariffs. And I hate to bring that up, but the reality is this is a steel bolted tank that comes from the UK. There's probably going to be a tariff on this. So I say we have adequate resources. We may have to go into the sewer fund and see what we can or can't do.
So when we get our
Depending on
bid,
the
we'll
bid.
evaluate that and the tariffs and the contractors and lead time and what tariff hits when. Because my understanding is the tariff doesn't hit until it actually is received at a port here. And so you can't pre-plan that. We don't quite know what that's going to be. So it's an interesting subject.
I'm more curious about pocket gophers again. So what if a private developer owns 900 acres and there's
Same thing.
Same
Really?
thing.
Wow.
It's part of the EIS, the environmental impact statement for Hall Equities property
Yeah.
is the pocket gopher habitat. And it's interesting because if you log the property, they don't their habitat is not in a wooded area.
Mhm.
So if you go and log that, essentially and clear that property, they could move in and you just create habitat for them and then you have to mitigate that later.
What happens after you log property?
Yeah,
They're
Oh,
prairie animals.
Okay.
That's what they are. That's why they love the airport. It's all prairie out there.
So I remember when I was in Colorado, I saw these prairie dogs. They'd go in one hole and come out the other.
This is a gopher, complete different. It's just a gopher. I mean,
So if you're ever up at the county shop, the Upper Mountain View Reservoir, the elevated tank on the stand there, if you drive over there, you'll see a pocket gopher habitat that they installed there back in what, 2018-ish? Like that, 17, 18.
here's the tank, you guys. That's what it's gonna look like physically. It's gonna be a domed top. You'll probably be able to see it, but that's the actual structure. Again, a 500,000 gallon bolted steel plain water tank. The idea here is this will allow us to store clean water. So as we are able to sell more, we'll be able to store more and make more money.
Right now, just the state patrol and the prison use, correct?
And Tractor Supply.
For watering.
And the prison could use more water at times. They sometimes have to draw off their well, because right now we only have 30,000 gallons of storage. So this will be a significant boost.
Again, mid-August is when we're going out to bid on this one, just to let you know. One that's out to bid right now is our secure civic center, secure police parking area. As you recall, Mark got some resources with regard to provide a gated area over there for our police department. Ingress in and egress in and out of this building is somewhat dangerous in that there's cubbies. Yeah, and people can hide. The idea is we're now going to have basically a 7-foot fence. It's 6 foot this way, but then it dives in like that. I was told by the manufacturer that no human can physically move themselves to get over the fence, meaning that there's segregation far enough. You have to be strong enough to try to. That's what they claim. But in any event, I also had mentioned that we had researched a bunch of security providers. Genetech was the one that we all decided on with our IT person. In essence, we already have the software. You've already seen the one contract here at your last meeting with regard to Genetech, and it's about $60,000. In essence, that is all the brains and the hardware, the cameras, the enter and exit panels. It's all the hardware associated with this. The actual project itself is all the infrastructure to support that. So all the tubing, all of the gates, all of the other stuff. In addition, we're going to add some more lighting out there so that they can see better. Another unique thing about this is the software is intelligent enough that if we enter license plate numbers as the officers back up, the camera identifies that and automatically opens the gate. Our concern was that if they had to go in emergency, is that going to allow us enough time if they pushed a button for the gate to open when they got to get out of here? So the idea is as they back up, it will identify that automatically opens the gate. It's open, they can go, and then it closes automatically after they leave. So
What happens when we have a power outage?
we're talking about that right now. What our thought process is that either we can leave them open manually, we can make them manually be open, or we can try to tie it into our generator, which is a distinct possibility, but that's going to take some loading calculations, those kinds of things, because believe it or not, the generator here does not power and we just learned that recently, AC does not work when the power is out.
I think as big as
Will
a
not be powered by that. So you'll sometimes see in our offices, there's red outlets. Those have been identified as ones that will be powered when the generator is functioning. So I think ultimately we will have to decide that.
Yeah, so other facilities I've been at, a pretty easy procedure to get in. You remove the cover, you take a belt off, you unlock this thing, and the gate opens right away. So it takes 30 seconds to a minute to open the gate. They just leave it open until the power's on again.
In addition, I don't know if I mentioned there was an additional $250,000 we're not using towards this project but that will help us continue on with Genetec to get our other facilities up to snuff with regard to security software, as well as instrumentation, letting people in and out, those kinds of things. So make you aware of that. This is the actual design project. Here's some pictures of at least the area. The one to the left is you're looking down the street at the Civic Center. The one here is basically out the window looking down into that area. In essence, the fence will encompass this area through here. And so back here, all the way through up here, all of this will be enclosed. There'll be an pedestrian entry gate there, a pedestrian entry gate there, and then a swing gate here, and then just the ones that move like this, not cantilever.
The rolling gate.
Rolling gate will be on there. Again, all automated and controlled, as well as additional cameras and 4 new utility light poles here to light up the area. Here, just down there so that they can see. Another project we want to talk to you about, obviously, is Olympic Highway North. We just learned today that, if you remember, we have systemic pedestrian improvement projects, which were 3 to 4 intersections around town, where we're going to improve how people cross. The lit things are going to be placed. There's one of those projects in that is what we served as our match money for the Olympic Highway North. And it's Olympic Highway North and I Street. That intersection is going to be improved with flashing beacons. We just got word that this project is about ready to be approved by WSDOT. So we are going to move forward and getting the design done for this with the desire by next summer we're paving. That's our desire. Again, this is in addition to the 3.5 million that we got CID to reconstruct this road. It is not in good shape. It's to be fixed.
Somebody asked me also what this project, if we were going to be upgrading any lights on that road. You just
Are you talking about the actual
PUD lights?
we're in contact with them, and part of our project kickoff meeting will be a meeting with them to identify how, where, that sort of thing.
It's a little dark. It's a little dark in winter.
Yeah.
Understood. We'll see. I mean, I think a lot of that 3.5 million is going to be in physically reconstructing this road. We have to get a geotechnical person in here because we want to correct it so that we don't end up with something like this again. So there's that. The other thing to consider, council, is that all of those ramps are non-compliant. Right. We're going to have to replace all of those. So I counted, there's 40 of them. So that's not going to be cheap. So ultimately, what we'd like to do is there's also, and where's the one with the light?
That's a K Street signal.
That is actually a temporary signal, you guys, believe it or not. It's strapped across with cable. That is not a permanent facility, but we've used it as a permanent facility. So ultimately, we would like to maybe upgrade that, but that's $500,000 easy, that kind of thing. The other thing that ultimately I think we really need to advocate for is getting that intersection of Wallace Nealon and the Walmart intersection that is currently DOT's. They're more than happy to give it to us, but we're not going to take it unless they improve it. And candidly, that is kind of a pinch point for development in that area, because the reality is, my understanding, there was a hotel that was potentially going to go over there. That bridge isn't big enough to deal with the volumes that it needs to. So
it's failing now. We backed up to the freeway.
Yeah, that slip lane isn't wide enough. Yeah, the bridge abutments are wide enough to have lanes if it warrants based on the development on the side of that intersections.
So it worked for when they built it, right? So when they built it, it was adequate. We had grown since Walmart to put in. A lot of things have changed. So
agreed.
I remember that was a dead end, wasn't it? Right there by Walmart. Wasn't that a dead end?
Isn't that great entrance to 101 before the overpass?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I remember there was a dead end up there somewhere. We had to come through town to get up there as a kid.
Well, Wallace Nealon was not through.
Okay,
So Olympic Highway North went to 101.
That's right.
Yeah.
The question about the K Street light, temporary light, you said, now would Peacock or whatever it is this week, be responsible for all the new traffic gonna be coming that way.
That's a bit of a stretch getting down.
Yeah, it's getting pretty far away.
I mean, eventually
Yeah.
2,000 more homes.
It's gonna go to Wallace England first,
Yeah.
and the intersection of Wallace and Johns and 13th, that'll be the next trigger most likely for intersection improvements.
And we're in the design of the roundabout for that. You have a slide coming up, I'm thinking on that.
Again, I said that we had some pictures. This is the Mountain View area paving that we just did on the 15th and 16th. The red is basically the areas that identified as where we were paving. It went well. They got it done within a day and a little bit the next day.
No, 2 full days.
Was it?
Yep, 2
Oh, it
full
was.
days, and it was 1,300 tons of asphalt. And the trucks from the county hauled like madmen. The paving machine was going out mad. And Todd Rhodes, project manager, admitted that it only should be 500 tons a day because it was way too stressful. That amount of asphalt for one paving machine. And that amount of trucks that have to drive all the way to Olympia, right? South
10
Tacoma.
tons would they carry, I think.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
like the max.
Yeah.
So we did 1,300 tons.
a lot of truckloads.
So I definitely saw some compliments online
Oh, it's great.
and mentioned to me that it's great to have their.
Here's some pictures. I think Todd is even holding a rake in one of them. What I want to just demonstrate for the council, in essence, when you're overlaying, this is the process you need to go through. I talked to you about the shoulder work as well as the pre-level. Those black marks that you see in the top, that's actually what they call tack. That's what they put down on the asphalt so that it will physically bind with the new asphalt, and they pave over that. And you end up with, the ultimate product, which is down towards the bottom. So
Yeah, so the paver goes by and then the rollers come through and compact it. And so they put down, in this case, 2 inches uncompacted. When they compacted it, went about to 1.6 inches. You have to rake it, smooth it, do a bunch of edge work. We had all sorts of people up there, city staff doing traffic control, raking, getting water, helping people, running errands, and then the county staff. They had significant resources between their trucking, their equipment, and just number of people on site. And it was a hot day too. So kudos to everybody on that project. Really good
I
job.
want to thank the county for their work. We weren't sure they were going to be able to help us out this year.
Yeah.
And it saves us several $100,000 when they do it.
So how many times has this particular area been overlaid?
It's over 40 years,
Yeah.
most likely, when it was originally paved.
I mean, so this really, and I'm not no BS, you guys, this is really impactful TBD use of funds. This is really what we want to show and produce for folks, because that it's a much better road. I did talk to a lady that came by the booth at the exhibit on Friday, and she said, "Thank you."
Yeah.
I said, "Make sure you vote." She's like, "Oh, okay." So right on.
Great.
But your decision ultimately. This is what I told her. Anyways, they understand the significance of that. So just some final slides, you guys, just to kind of update you. These are other projects that we have going on. A lot of these we've talked about before, but I just want to make you aware of that. Some budget, I think it was $20,000 was in the budget to add irrigation to the North Cliff water, the North Cliff Park. Our people are going to do that. I know that they were looking to purchase what is needed to make that happen, and we'll probably get going on that this fall. It's my understanding in talking with Luke. Something else that recently you guys will see this. We were able to find a contractor on the state procurement contract. And we now have a bid for replacing the UPS, or the uninterrupted power supply that basically feeds this building, guys. What that does is it basically supplies 15 minutes of power until the generator can kick in. The idea is we want to try to save servers. What we recently experienced with a recent power outage is the UPS doesn't work. The batteries are so worn and done. In essence, it just kicked off to the generator. We are in essence going to replace that whole system, new batteries, new system, and we're working on the work order right now. We already have the bid. It's already budgeted. So I'm just letting folks know about that.
How old is the system that we have right now?
Oh boy,
Original, 25, 26 years.
yeah. And
There's been battery replacements over the years. They last in the 5 to 7, 8 year range. And so we've replaced batteries and have regular maintenance contracts. And we can't get a maintenance contract on the system anymore. It's too old. Nobody wants to agree to maintain it for us. So, and technology's really changed. This one produces a bunch of heat. There's no lockout. It goes from 480 to 270 back to 480. I don't know. It's
the strangest thing.
You can't lock it. You can't lock it out to maintain it, so it's always hot and live. And so there's some safety elements here as well that will really be improved.
Absolutely. And new battery technology too. So the batteries are going to last a lot longer, we hope. Another project I've talked to you about, we're just finalizing. We had a couple more comments on the design, the reservoir vent hood replacement project. We basically have 4 locations where we have to replace the vents on the top of those facilities. In essence, it does allow two-way air in and out, but in essence, we're trying to prevent bugs and other stuff from getting into our water system. DOH required unfunded mandate, I guess.
Correct.
It's part of
With the date.
part of the upgrades of running the utility. So that will be moving forward. Another project that Brent is currently, he's moving forward with design is, I think I've mentioned this to you, we have a sewer line, 12-inch sewer line that is, basically it was below the grade of Goldsboro Creek because of the erosion and other stuff that's occurred. It's now exposed and it's basically in the stream itself. We have the ability to bypass that, which we're going to move forward with, but the tribe has been very adamant. And again, as part of that restoration work that I was telling you about, that pipe removal is dependent on those other habitat projects will not be successful until that's taken out, because as a stream wears, degrades, it's pushing out material. It's not able to do that right now. That's going to help their habitat restoration in that it's going to be feeding more gravels and materials out there like it would do if it was just a natural.
There was a bunch of rocks that were put downstream
That
of the
too.
pipe. When you look down there, they're holding sediment back. They want that sediment out in the bay.
Correct. The systemic pedestrian improvement project, I told you about that. That was the I Street and Olympic Highway North and 3 other locations. We're getting PE authorization to move forward with design. That is moving forward with design. Excited about that. The other issue is the Wallace Nealon Shelf Springs roundabout. Originally, we had talked about maybe looking at doing some, and we did some modifications to that light, of which I got a lot of compliments talking to people about that. Thank you for doing
Left
that.
turn
Very
arrow put in.
helpful. We have money to move forward with design. That's moving forward. Everything's been submitted to WASDOT. I'm just waiting for them to give us authorization to move forward with another project that we're working on right now. And we were able actually to find somebody on state contract, the fire alarm and the devices, the actual sensors within this facility need to be replaced to the tune of about, I think you guys budgeted $150,000. Cost estimate we got back was $125,000. So we've actually experienced potentially some cost savings on that, but those are just as old as everything else. That's what's going on with those. And occasionally we will have it kind of randomly just go off. So that's the kind of stuff we need to address. Anything else, Jim?
No, it's a good dose of
Very
projects.
cool picture. That was our Springs house back in 1958.
I don't know where he found that,
Found it in
but
the
I've been looking
archives.
for something like that for a while. So you can see the pipe getting ready for a project, and
I
Keep the
suspect those
cows
are
out.
collection pipes.
Yeah. Is it wood stake pipe with the banding on it?
It
or
looks like- kinda looks
something
like
else,
the-
okay?
yeah, It actually looks like
The
it,
banding?
yeah, could be. It's black though, is the
Yeah,
interesting
maybe
thing.
not in the 50s.
Yeah,
Look at everything north, it's all pasture.
yeah. You see the fence that kept the cows out of there the whole bit.
So that's our update, council. If you have more questions, please ask.
I have a question. We back up to the disinfection design. We were looking for more money for that. That directly affects the water and the water quality and the shellfish. Have we talked to the tribe about that?
They actually were on board with us getting the design money. So yes, we have talked to them about that. I think that anytime we would want a support letter or something from them, even they're an independent sovereign nation, they have their own pool too. So yes, they've been very receptive to that. They're very much in favor of any habitat project, like Goldsboro Creek piece. And I think they even gave us money for the MBR plant at one point.
Yeah, assisted us with the reclaim.
So yes, the answer is yes. I will continue to brief them about that as we move forward. Yes.
I just wanted to thank you for providing the habitat for the gopher and also for making the projects in the future to keep the quality of the water in the bay as high as it can be for our shellfish business. So thank you so much about that.
Council, I've been in this business a long time. I think Jay has, all of us have. The reality is it's only getting more complicated with regard to costs and things that we need to do. On the horizon, you guys, we have the storm comp plan that's going to be coming up. I will tell you, because I've worked in the areas that are urbanized, it's just going to get more tougher. It's going to get more tougher. We're going to get asked to do more. We're going to get asked to inspect our catch basins more. We're going to be asked to do a lot of different things. And the crux that we will struggle with is we actually are under a DOE permit now to discharge our stormwater. So regulations, everything is just going to get a lot more tougher. And it's going to impact development because the reality is they have to thumb out the money in order to do these measures. So I just want to make the council aware of that. This upstate we're doing next year is going to be a significant piece for us, just as far as getting ourselves better organized, because the reality is our stormwater system, it's very old, and we have direct discharges that go from catch basins right into the creek. There's no treatment, there's no detention, that kind of stuff. So I just want to make you guys aware of that. It's not intent to scare anybody. It's just a matter of we're going to have to figure out how we're going to be compliant with those types of things.
Are we still looking at the ceramic membrane filters that we were looking at a couple of years ago?
For catch basins?
Yeah.
There are mechanical methods, but they're not.
The membrane plant, is that what you're referring to?
No, we bought a whole bunch of, what they weren't ceramic. That was the next technology coming out. We were waiting for it.
It's the membrane plant.
That's the membrane plant. That was the actual filters that he just.
Yeah, the Kubota filters.
Yeah.
We didn't go to ceramic because they were newer and the technology hadn't proven itself yet. But the next time we put filters in there, about 10 years out, we'll probably be putting in higher capacity filters and will give us more treatment capability there. What you're talking about is there's stormwater filters that have been around for about 30 years, and they're cartridges, and the water goes through the cartridge. Typically, they fill them with perlite, and then we go in a couple times a year, exchange the cartridges. That filters the water before it goes into the stream. It doesn't do anything for quantity control, though. It's just quality control.
I thought it was sewer related, but yeah. What's those filters?
Those are
Yeah.
the MBR treatment.
Yeah.
Those ceramic ones are. Exactly. So they have different technologies. They have what they call swirl concentrators that will help get salt stuff or heavies out. They have compost filters. The problem with it is they have to be maintained and they're not cheap.
The compost filter is interesting. That's the one where the tree grows out of it, right? Yeah.
All right. Well, nobody has any more questions?
I actually do have a question. Yeah. On the street tree and sidewalk repairs, did I hear you right when you said there might be some discussions on removing the middle lane?
Doing what now?
On the street tree and sidewalk repair.
Yeah.
Did I hear you correctly in saying that there was discussion on widening the sidewalk for some cafe space, but maybe removing the middle turn lane?
Not for this project. This is a maintenance project only, but Jones and Jones presented a concept that was actually in the plan, the downtown plan.
No, it's done afterwards.
Oh, it was down, but there
Jones and Jones came in afterwards, 2014 or whatever. Downtown visioning.
Correct, but part of the visioning plan was to do some of those things. Jones and Jones took that idea though and amplified it. So that's all that was. And the reason was city manager at that time asked me, if you're doing the street trees, can you make part of this downtown revitalization plan happen? And Jones came back and said, yeah, but the curbs are moving, the sidewalk's getting wider, and likely the turn lane will get affected, or the parking, there's something that will get affected there. That's as far as it went, because the cost to do that, was, millions and millions of dollars. And so we need a project that makes the sidewalks safe right now. So we're just doing a replacement only project, but that's up for future discussion in terms of downtown revitalization and exactly what happens with the street in the future.
Okay. In regards to that, I would just like to ask, have we considered what the impact to emergency vehicles would be, especially since we're expecting population growth and perhaps increased traffic?
If the street configurations change, yeah, that all gets looked at, and they comment on it. The fire department has a lot of different standards for that type of thing. That could be turning radiuses and that sort of thing. So yeah, that's definitely on their radar. And whenever they're looking at our subdivision plans, that sort of thing, they're commenting on all new roadway designs.
This is the Jones and Jones plan. They do show something with regard to that center turn lane, but they still have the arrows. So I think they were just trying to segregate it out, that is going to stay a turn lane. In the future, why they colored it, I don't know, but you have turn arrows there and there, so I don't see that being eliminated, but you're very good point. Very good point. And yes, we have to look at that.
And at this
Right,
point,
thank
just
you.
accept,
Absolutely.
right? Not
Right,
approving, not even
Right.
approving.
I just wanted to throw that out there.
The concept.
No,
I was
that.
asked by the city manager to delve down something, and it sent us down a road that wasn't really part of this maintenance project, right? It was a good question, and to answer the question involved this. So
Thank you.
you're welcome, of course.
There's no other questions. Thank you, gentlemen. And we'll move on to.
Yeah.
Move on to.
Yeah, I'm
You
good.
got
Aaron's
Blue?
off it.
Come on.
Share my screen.
To talk about, ordinance modify signing authorities, and then Mark, just in case you want to move that mic over that doesn't blink red,
Yeah,
because I hear that, sometimes I can't hear you.
oh,
Well,
that's on purpose.
yeah.
Okay. We've talked about this a few times in briefings, and we finally have a revised ordinance, but there's a couple other edits or changes that I wanted to bring to you tonight. First and foremost, this is the red line version, if you will, or the edited version. And so there's actually three different elements here. Section 1 of this proposed ordinance is repealing 2.06 of the Shelton Municipal Code. 2.06 references city departments. It was originally drafted in 1988 and has not been updated since, except for changing from commission to council back in 2018. So there's a lot of redundancies within this code, particularly with 2.18 with where it lists departments and function of the departments, especially the city manager. So our proposal and the city attorney's proposal is to repeal that due to its redundancy and irrelevance at this point. Section 2 is a new section 2.18 that references signing authority. As you know, the city council, I think it was council. Yeah. The city council approved a resolution back in 2020 authorizing signing authorities for the manager and staff. That signing authority was set at $30,000. So anything above $30,000 would come back to the city council for approval moving forward. as we've discussed a number of times, that can be a little onerous in coming back, particularly if we follow what was the three-touch rule, going through a business agenda item, action agenda item, and then being able to move forward. So what we've done here is proposed one section for contracts, which is the first paragraph under 218040, that would delegate the city manager authority to award, execute, and close out contracts in a dollar amount less than $50,000 on behalf of the city. The delegation shall include, but not limit to, public works contracts, change orders, service contracts, and purchase of goods, supplies, or equipment. And then also execute grant funding agreements in dollar amounts less than $50,000. We have the ability to bring this to council for transparency and public information, certainly. In addition to the authority here of the council. The second paragraph grants the city manager the authority for one-time purchases for supplies or equipment in dollars amount over $50,000. So these aren't contracts or services. These are purchases of materials and items if it is within the city's annual budget as approved by city council. One thing we talked about, I should have brought it tonight, is within your budget book, in each department, we have bulleted items that call out these types of projects. So what we do is we more specifically list within the budget book items that are budgeted as approved to the city council. Those would be specific to this $50,000 over the $50,000 threshold, and we communicate those through briefings or as appropriate through council meetings to be as transparent as possible with the public on which way how we're spending money in the city. As you can see, many of these projects and these public works projects are well over this $50,000 threshold, and they'll come to the council for not only approval of the grant, if it's grant appropriate after the budget's been approved, but also with the contract for design work and then a contract for construction as well. I guess I'll stop for questions there if you have any.
I mean, this makes sense with inflation, things are going up. And I will say, if it weren't for you guys being so transparent with the budget and having finance come in and show us everything so regularly, yeah, I might have a little concern. But we see so much already that I'm not concerned about it going up to 50,000 because we know what's already there, right? So that's my 2 cents with that. I completely agree.
You know, I agree. You definitely don't want to hold up a contract or work that's going to be done for a week or even 2 weeks to get to another item for the council. So yeah, I agree that
So you're signing the agreements going on the consent agenda, or is it just going to just be your
Authorized for the ordinance to sign without going on the consent agenda, yes.
For the sake of efficiency, I think it's a good plan.
So section 3 is just reorganizing 2.18 because the added 2.040 and then 2.60.010. This is a code section referencing city offices and the hours we keep as identified in our CW. I realized that we are not meeting this code because our current office hours are 8:30 to 4:30. The change in this code would authorize the city manager to determine how those office hours are met with the available resources that we have. Obviously, that's a communication with the council. It's certainly a communication through our budgeting process, because if we are going through reduction in staff or changing our service level, our service levels, that affects how we interact with the public and the services we're providing to the public. So therefore, we would more specifically talk about when the city offices are open and what kind of services we're providing. So again, this provides a little more flexibility for us to have that conversation without going back with a code amendment to change our actual office hours. And we're compliant with our own code.
So like your all staff meeting, you close for an extra 2 hours in the morning.
Yeah.
this makes it, you're able to change that time yourself.
A little bit. I mean, you're hoping that because it had an exception for holidays and other occasions as directed by the council. So yes, I guess you could say we were non-compliant for instances like that if we had an all-staff meeting or we had to close for any other specific purpose.
Sounds good to
Okay,
me.
all right.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sorry.
terrific. And I'll show you then the last document attached to this is, I can shrink it down.
So you put that all together?
I was gonna touch bases. I was gonna let you know that Kiltz's work on this. So
Yeah,
this is actually a matrix because within the signing authority that ordinance, it would also dictate that we develop a policy for other signing authority. Obviously, I wouldn't sign every invoice that comes across our desk, the city of Shelton. So that authority is then delegated down. You can see the council's authority at the top up here at anything above $50,000. There's goods and vendor purchase materials. Those would be, there's an asterisk there if they are not budgeted, right? Purchase services, anything over $50,000, and then public works projects over 50 again. Personal services, professional A&E, so that's architectural and engineering. Work orders and tasks, that could be with our on-call services. Grants or loans, we have $10,000 in there as the application. I would, I guess, propose that that's raised a little bit. Typically, if there's a $10,000 grant that we're applying for, it has a fairly quick turnaround. There usually isn't matching funds associated with that. If there is matching funds, it's not a whole lot of money, right? It might be 10% of $1,000, something like that. So I would hate to hold up a grant application and those low amounts. If we're looking at $3.6 million for the Olympic Gateway, we're going to have some more time to get that forward and be able to come to council. So,
It's stipulated sort of that at your signing authority for a purchase. So if it's a 10% match and you can sign up to $50,000, you could apply for a $500,000 grant and without talking to us.
Okay.
I don't
That's a
know about
reasonable-
anybody else, but.
I'll let Councilmember give more suggestions.
So you're saying like there's no matching funds to that grant?
What if the
Okay.
matching funds are under the signing?
Signing authority. Next level is city manager, as we talked about. So anything under 49,000, under $50,000 to 49.99. Department directors would have signing authority at 14,999. That's essentially, as you see, kind of across the board.
I'd sign about 2 things a week, whether it's a sludge ticket normally or something like, or a chemical delivery that was huge. And I keep some out of his office, right? But
And again,
he signs the bulk of things that come across.
And again, this is efficiency and continuity of service and being able to continue our operations as appropriate. Supervisory staff, that could be superintendents, assistant public works directors, and individuals like that that have a little more authority and decision making. And then the assistant techs, field staff, delegated by the level 2 staff. So again, there's delegation here that is supplied to the city manager and again to the finance department. So our accounting department knows that you have signing authority at each of these levels. And these are for individuals that, are purchasing whatever supplies, whether it's nuts and bolts or 2x4s or anything else out in the field.
Sign up for training conferences, that sort of thing.
We do, our purchasing policies do require our supervisors to sign off on these invoices as well. So if we have a line level staff that purchase something during the day, they have their supervisor sign off on it as well. So we have some duplication there, and we have some checks and balances in place. So we make sure that that everybody's following policy and the appropriate materials are being purchased and they're being assigned to the appropriate code, right, to the budget. because the bars codes can be quite confusing. They can be quite confusing. I'll leave it at that. So we want to make sure they're coded the correct way and attributed to the right department and budget. So this matrix would be adopted as reference to the code amendments, but be adopted by policy. So it'll be disseminated out throughout all of our staffs. As approved, and we would review this on an annual basis and come back to council if there's any changes within that, within 2.18 Shelton code.
Makes sense to me, and I asked you today, if somebody abuses it, you say that they lose their.
Yeah, they don't get to purchase anything anymore. Plus, frankly, it's a disciplinary process. If you're not following city policy, you make a mistake, an honest mistake. Obviously, there's opportunity for coaching and correction. If it's abused, maybe nefarious, then it takes a different tact.
Right.
And I would say that I haven't faced that in probably my career here, frankly. So that sums up that proposed. Oh, one more thing. So I'm proposing to bring this forward at the next regular council meeting on August 19th. I would have a resolution to repeal the 2020 resolution with that signing authority. Just for clarification, we have a resolution that repeals that 2020, so we don't have these competing documents out there to eliminate any confusion. So that would be attached to the agenda on August 19th as well.
That's great.
So thank you for the matrix and thank you for keeping this clear and transparent.
All right. Council have any new items for discussion tonight? Well, then we will call this study session 7:41 p.m.